Welcome, forest friends. It's time to enter the forest and see what we discover. Open your mind and wander with us for a bit. Welcome back, forest friends, to another quiet journey through the learning forest. In earlier episodes, we explored how thought forms, how schema grow, how memory stabilizes, and how co-regulation calms the storms inside the mind. Today we enter the part of the forest that determines which trails a learner believes they are allowed to walk at all. This episode is called The Stories Beneath the Soil, Narrative Identity, and the Paths Learners Walk. Every learner carries stories about themselves. These stories begin early, shaped by emotion, experience, success, failure, and the way adults respond in moments of struggle. Some stories grow like vines, supporting the mind as it climbs. Others coil tightly, limiting movement. These narratives are not reflections of truth. They are interpretations, internalized patterns, survival strategies, and over time they become some of the most powerful schema a person ever builds. Narrative identity is the lived story a learner tells with or without words. It is the quiet script running beneath their decisions. It is the meaning they assign to their abilities, their struggles, their worth, and their place in the world of learning. Research from Dan McAdams, Dweck, Hazel Markus, and Jerome Bruner shows us that humans do not simply store experiences. We shape them into stories, and the brain uses these stories as predictive maps. This is who I am. This is how I learn. This is what I can do. This is the kind of person I am allowed to be. Think of a student who says, "I'm just bad at math." That is not a statement about ability. It is a narrative identity, a schema so rigid that the frills have withdrawn completely. A story so rehearsed that it feels like a fact. Or the student who says, "I always mess up when I read aloud." That is not a forecast. It is a memory-shaped narrative that has closed the door on the trail ahead. Narratives like these rarely form out of thin air. They form through emotional tagging, a single moment of humiliation, a confusing explanation delivered too quickly, a time someone laughed at a mistake, a season of unstructured struggle, or even repeated success interpreted incorrectly. "I always get this right" can be just as rigid as "I never get this right." Both are scripts. Both can collapse under pressure. But narratives also form through the opposite. A moment of connection. A teacher who noticed effort. A parent who said, "Let's figure it out together." A peer who shared their confusion out loud. These moments become seeds for different stories. Stories that say, "I can grow," or "I can try again," or "this might make sense soon." Narrative identity is not only shaped by emotion, but also by memory and schema. When a learner encodes an experience with strong emotional weight, the memory strengthens. When the memory strengthens, it influences the schema around it. And when a schema with emotional significance repeats often enough, it becomes a story, not an event, a story. This creates a remarkable recursive loop. Schema-shaped narrative. Narrative shapes schema. The two reinforce one another like a root system that determines how the entire forest grows. To understand narrative identity deeply, imagine two learners walking two different trails in the same forest. One sees a steep hill and thinks, "I can climb this." Their story opens the path. The other sees the same hill and thinks, "This is where I fail." Their story closes it. Nothing about the hill changed, only the narrative beneath the soil. Once we see narrative identity as part of the cognitive forest, we can begin to change it, not by force, not by contradiction, not by artificial praise, but by helping learners rewrite their stories through new emotional tags, new experiences, and new relational anchors. Co-regulation plays a large role here. When a learner experiences calm in a moment of difficulty, the nervous system stores that moment as evidence. The story begins to shift from "I panic when I don't understand" to "someone helped me find my footing." When a teacher or parent responds to frustration with warmth instead of pressure, the brain internalizes a new pattern. And when a leader models curiosity in a challenging moment, the adults around them mirror that stance and begin writing their own new narratives. Narrative identity changes through relational consistency, through safety repeated often enough to reshape memory, through emotional tagging that turns fear into manageable risk, through schema that become flexible again, through retrieval practices that build confidence rather than collapse it, through teachers who say, "Tell me what you were thinking," instead of, "Why did you do that?" Through families who say, "Let's try this together," instead of, "You should already know this." The key is that stories shift through lived evidence. The brain updates its predictions when the world gives it new data. A student who once failed repeatedly in writing and later experiences success through modeling begins to revise the story. The frills begin to extend. A learner who once shut down during group work but now feels emotionally supported begins to reopen the schema around collaboration. A teacher who once thought, "I'm not good with technology," slowly changes their narrative through scaffolded experiences that reduce cognitive overload. Narrative identity also evolves through language. When adults consistently use growth-oriented language tied to process, not personality, learners begin incorporating those phrases into their internal script. "This is new for me. Let me try another approach. I understand this part. I'm getting closer." These are not slogans. They are verbal scaffolds that slowly rewrite identity-level schema. But narrative identity is not purely individual. It is profoundly social. Classrooms, schools, and families contain collective narratives. A school can carry a narrative of empowerment or scarcity. A classroom can carry a narrative of exploration or compliance. A family can carry a narrative of capability or constant crisis. These larger stories shape the smaller stories within them. Leaders play a critical role here. A principal who communicates calmly, models problem solving, and celebrates growth helps rewrite the school's narrative. A leader who rushes, reacts, or radiates overwhelm unintentionally writes a narrative of fear or urgency. And because mirror neurons amplify these states, the narrative travels through the building like a breeze. Adults catch it, students catch it, it becomes part of the forest. Learning environments must intentionally craft the stories they want the forest to carry. When an entire system adopts a narrative grounded in curiosity, resilience, and cognitive compassion, the learners inside it begin to absorb those patterns. As we close today's trail, remember this: narrative identity is not fixed. It bends. It rewrites itself. It responds to the emotional climate, the cognitive structures, the memories we reinforce, and the relationships that hold us. Every learner's story is editable. Every rigid schema can be softened. Every closed path can reopen. Not through pressure, but through presence. Not through correction, but through connection. In the next episode, Forest Friend, we will explore how self-talk, internal language, and mental rehearsal reshape the trails learners walk, turning silent narratives into powerful cognitive tools. Until then, carry this truth: the stories learners live are not the final chapters. They are the drafts beneath the soil, waiting for the right conditions to grow. We'll see you on the next trail. Thanks for joining us on the Intellectual Hike, Forest Friends. Don't forget to visit us at www.alderbranch.org for more free resources and join our friends today. See you for another brain hiking adventure soon.